What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Institute of Higher Earning podcast. TJ Cozen here. Have a very special guest for episode number 10, assuming they come out in order on all your favorite podcast platforms. Make sure you hit the subscribe and the thumbs up like button, please. My good friend Kristin Gerst has been in real estate. We don't want to date anyone, but I've been in it since 2006. And she started when she was 12, roughly about the same time. And then Tony also has been in it for a little while. I think in 2005, technically. Today, her main deal is notes and financing and flips. And well, honestly, she does kind of the same stuff we do. The topic today is talking about multifamily, what's going on right now in the marketplace because things are changing bigly, where things are likely to keep going, and what we're likely to see going into the end of the year and beginning of maybe Q1 of next year. Kristin, what qualifies you to talk about multifamily?
It was my very first deal. It was a multifamily deal.
Didn't I just say I don't like talking about people's first deals on the podcast? Like,
well, I don't want to talk. I don't want to
to
talk about the deal. I mean, I've done multifamily over the years. I really right now. I'm really interested in commercial non-performing paper, and it's exciting this year.
Why?
Because the commercial, we've got over $1 trillion, I think it's $1.2 trillion in commercial paper that is resetting on their interest rates in the next 12 to 18 months.
Commercial being?
Commercial, anything multifamily, office building,
strip malls.
I think stuff that's going to have like medical is going to be great, right? We all need doctor's offices, fine. Stuff with strip malls that have a really good anchor property, those are probably going to be okay. But if you're talking about multifamily or office space, it is in for a world of hurt because the vacancy rates are down. So right now, everybody's interest rates that are resetting, they're basically doubling. But then they can't even refinance or modify those loans now because the properties aren't worth what they were 5 years ago because your vacancy rates are way down.
Let's go back in time real quick, actually, because what's impacting the market now we're seeing is way different than what impacted the market in 2008 and 9.
It is.
But
that doesn't mean that we're not still going to feel and see something similar
we're
as an income.
We're going to get pinched in that space, and a lot of the big operators that are over-leveraged are. But what are the big differences? Because when we were 2006 to 2008, rates were going down, and we didn't almost know that the market was as basically jacked as it was going to be. Now, rates are going up.
I didn't know.
And people are kind of saying the same thing. I was like, it might be like 2008. It's like, it's nothing like 2008. The causes are completely different. What's impacted is completely different. And what people did wrong to get into these problems is completely different. So break down a couple of those for us.
2 years ago, I was on a panel. Shanoa Grove. Everybody knows Shanoa. She knows her stuff. I think she's been doing it 30 years, something like that. She's been in the business a long time. She was sunshine and rainbows. All sunshine and rainbows. She's like, are you kidding?
Damn, way to call her out. Can we tag her?
No. She knows. We've had this conversation since. This panel. And I just started opening. I started laughing and I said, you know what? The last time I heard.
How much whiskey did you
Texas. No, I know. I should have been. Maybe I was drinking. I don't know. I'm pretty bold with my opinions anyways. But the last time I heard that Texas isn't going to be affected because we have so many companies moving to Texas, our economy's super strong. We didn't have the upside like California, New York, Florida, and Vegas, so we're not going to be affected. I go, that was me saying that in 2007, and lo and behold, I lost my shirt in 2008.
And Texas, because I wasn't
in Texas. I mean, I was all in Texas. I open about this. When the dust settled, I was in debt on my personal credit, not attached to mortgages. That's a whole nother debt story. But just in my own personal credit from all of my losses that I accrued was $375,000 that I then had to figure, I went hat in hand to all my creditors back then and said, hey, I'm sorry, I can't pay you, but I'm going to pay you back every penny that I owe you. Can you put me on a plan?
And work it out.
And it took 18 months to do that.
So the story's similar.
The story is similar.
On the front end is very similar.
Right. So then I saw Shanoa, fast forward 6 months later, so a year and a half ago, we're at this conference and she comes up to me, gives me a huge hug. She goes, I would never have thought interest rates and inflation would have completely taken us down. She goes, I'm losing money on every single flip that I've got out there. And I think that's kind of
You don't lose money on flips. What are you talking about? Nobody fucking loses money when they flip. Like, you make money and it's free and it's easy and you use everybody else's money and you just make $100,000.
I love those people.
I'm out.
I love those.
I'm out.
I love those people on Facebook. Every time I read, I'm like, thanks for posting the picture of your check that you got from the title company.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's asinine.
Yeah. No.
How much did it cost?
Yeah, what does the actual balance sheet look like of that deal, right?
Hey, it's not a loss if you don't actually look at the accounting.
Exactly.
There was some other guy who like opened up a cabinet and he's like, look at all my HUD ones from my closings. And I'm like, why do you even save those? I'm like, and is that just like, I'm like, I can take $100 bill and wrap it around a stack of ones and go, look at my money.
So one of the biggest differences in 2006 to 8, we were in a decreasing interest rate environment. Rates are going down. Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Now we're in a raising interest rate environment. So that impacts things differently. Because in 2006 to 8, I think it was precipitated by the residential market, the meltdown of the residential market and the credit default swaps for the bad residential loans. And a lot of that stuff that happened on the back end with loans that we were doing for people that probably shouldn't have been getting loans. Now, I think we're seeing the same exact thing, and I've been thinking it for years on the commercial side, with people that, no offense to bad operators, actually plenty of offense to them, but they were all bidding up and bidding up and bidding up and competing on a very small margin to their LP section, to the LP side, and then say, okay, well, your LP can make like 12%, that's awesome, isn't that great? But not paying any attention to the actual inherent market risk of the property.
Well, but also, not totally in their fault. Their numbers might have been great, but you've got a 1.5 years, 2-year runway when you take over a multifamily project. Then you've got to do value add. You've got to renovate your units. You've got to slowly increase rents.
That's a good
And
point.
I'm
That's a
like,
good point for bridge loans.
that's not necessarily their fault, where all of a sudden they're looking to refinance this project at their, can get out of their construction money. So a lot of these guys are in like bridge money and expensive bridge money thinking, oh, well, we're going to go, we're doing 2 years at say 10 or 12%, but then we're going to refinance down to 4.
Okay, so I guess the bridge money conversation is interesting. My problem with a lot of the multifamily guys is their new value add is like light switches and LEDs and thermostats. It's not like value add. When we did value add back in the day, it was
Gutted the whole thing.
Yeah.
Took them down to the studs and
down
gutted
to the
them.
studs sometimes, and definitely down to the drywall. No cabinets, nothing. And so now we're starting over from ground up. So at least we have kind of control of what the value add is. But when you're just trying to pinch for like really small margins on what a value add is, how much value add do you do? If you raise around $50, do you spend, a whole bunch of money
Couple
to
thousand.
do it?
Yeah.
Not much.
Right.
So there's all this opportunity coming due, right? Excuse me. If there's all this opportunity coming due in that commercial space, how do you
Commercial non-performing mortgages.
Mhm. Yeah. So how do you
So-
avoid?
I mean, I
Because
also
you're going to have, we're going to be looking at probably 2 years, right, before
2 years.
rates make any significant changes. So
Right.
Hey,
But
rates
you have
are
to-
coming down this year
you have
6
to-
times. That's what I heard. That's what I heard on the internet.
But you also have to remember that the Fed, they raise the interest rates that they're lending money to banks. That is not banks lending money.
CNN
To the rest of us.
CNN says that the Fed's lowering the rates. That means that my mortgage payment's going to go down.
That is not true.
So
That is not a,
there's no connection?
Well, that's correlated.
it's correlated, but it's not.
I'm
It's
just
not
amazed you watch
causation.
CNN. I'm amazed you watch CNN.
So it's, again, no, I love when people are like, oh, yeah, we're going to be able to, like, the mortgage rates are instantly going to go down. They're not.
No.
Because that's not how it works. You also have to remember that right now there's a tightening of credit because banks are nervous. We had so many small regional banks go under last year.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, last year I had a garbage year. It was garbage in buying and selling notes. And I've told some of you guys about this where, it was easy. Like I had a $30 million package and it was institution to institution. Paper was gorgeous. And
You're just
it was
keeping a piece in the
right.
middle, right? Moving it from here to
Yeah,
there.
no, yeah. I was, and I wasn't even, I was keeping 2 points.
That's pretty good.
Oh, and 30 million? Yeah.
What's the math on that?
It's
Figure that out.
It's enough.
it's enough. It's nice.
She's buying wine after this.
Probably. Hey, I brought you scotch.
Yeah, she brought us scotch.
Brought you a nice bottle of
Oh,
scotch
thank
because
you.
I knew you'd like it. It really, I thought, oh, it's going to be a slam done deal, easy. Took it to my first one that I'm like, oh, he's going to love this. Ended up not even buying all of it. Like bought like 6 million of it. Instead of taking 3 or 4 weeks, it took 15. And then I go, all right, well, I'm going to take the rest to, okay, I'll go to this other guy, bring it to him. He doesn't buy all of it. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, this should be the easiest thing in the world to do.
And this happens in the Wall Street, right? Everything that we're talking about happens on the billions scale
Yes.
on the open market,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And that's what's controlling.
So I'm a super small fish.
Mhm.
Like I'll buy from mom and pops. I'll pull them up I love banks and institutions. If they're selling me a tape of 30 million, that's a great day. But typically I'm buying 1s or 2s from mom and pops. I pool them together and then I bring them to my buyers that say, hey, I need 5 million on a spreadsheet to get in the door.
Well, so that's an interesting point. Let's talk about liquidity for a second because I think it's a fascinating topic. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, everyone on Facebook, everyone on YouTube, everyone's going to talk about, man, I'm waiting for the crash to get in. I'm just going to buy up everything when there's no one else left in the market and all this other stuff. And I'm sitting here, having gone through the last crash, as we all have, being like, bro, it doesn't work like that. Because if you're the only one left standing, good luck yourself having any money. But at the second time, it was tough to get loans in 2009 and 10.
Yeah.
It was really
9, 10,
tough
11,
to
12,
get.
it was brutal.
I
Bank
was
loans, do you hard
tough
money loans?
on paper.
It was
anything.
brutal. It was.
And I don't mean our personal credit, our personal assets. I mean asset-based loans. It was really tough to get a hard money loan on a flip property in 2009 and a half to about 2012.
I did it for my personal portfolio in 2009, 2010. I was subject to.
So, but not necessarily if we're talking to some of the less educated people out there, not necessarily tough because of the creditor, but like everyone now, I feel like in the last 5 to 10 years thinks, oh, I could do flips without money.
Yeah.
Right? Because they were doing 75% financing or 80% financing or 82 or 85. Well, when I don't know about you, but I was 60 cents on the dollar buying in 9, 10, 11, and I still got fucking hurt.
Uh-huh.
So now, and we still had to put money down then, right? So I think the bigger liquidity problem maybe that people are experiencing is, oh, I can't do this for free. What do you mean I have to put 20 grand in? I have to bring 20 grand to closing to close on a flip, right?
Is that where all our competition went? They realized
If we're
they had money
talking,
to do real estate?
if we're talking about the residential side, I mean, if you're following the trends of the nation, we had the highest savings of recorded history of Americans
Basically
after
coming out of
COVID,
right? Yeah.
and that's gone.
Yeah.
Nobody has it anymore. People are paycheck to paycheck again, no savings, and defaults are way up on credit cards and on mortgages right now. So it's
Don't even talk about auto loans.
Yeah,
If you bring up auto loans and the default problem, like it's catastrophic.
Was a cherry conversation. Follow for more.
I tried to get.
but that all means
I tried to get a good golden nugget of how are you gonna avoid
How do we navigate
right?
that?
So how do you navigate that?
navigate
So you're
capitalize
looking
on it.
for again, you're going at non-performing commercial loans, right? So
Right.
how are you gonna make those
So-
positive for you?
So the great thing is when you're buying non-performing notes, I suspect it's going to be what the residential non-performing notes look like back in 2008, 2009, 2010,
That's what I said.
where they would be sold for 25, 30 cents on the dollar. So if you're going in and you're picking up this non-performing commercial asset, okay, it might be $50 million owed on the face, but you're going to go in and pick it up for, say, 15 million.
So how?
Now, can you do that? And what's the value of that? You still have to,
You got to be able to ride the
you got to be able to
some
ride it
tide.
out.
Yeah.
So here's maybe the counter to that on the note space versus the short sale space. Because we're playing golf with some buddies of ours, one of our private lenders. He doesn't run out of money. That's good. It's a nice problem to have. But he told us that a friend of theirs just bought an office building in Dallas I don't remember all the exact details, but basically the loan was something like $85 million. And they pooled, actually they didn't even pool, they call it three buddies, because that's what they do. So they call three buddies and they get it down to like 45 million or something like that, I think. No, it was 16. It was 30 million. No, it was 40 million. My bad. They get to 40 million, whatever. And then one of their investors with 16 mil pulls out. So they go back to the lender that they're getting the short sales from, and they say, hey, Mr. Lender, we can only do 20 million. And the lender says, well, can you do 28? And it says, no. The lender says, well, can you do 25? And they say, yeah, we can do 25. So they took a short sale from 80 million in a commercial office space in Dallas down to $25 million, where the bank took that
The
hit.
problem is
just
the
by
problem,
asking, right? Like,
right. But the problem is short sales take a while.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And all of these small banks are FDIC insured, which means that there's a bank examiner that's going to come on a certain day and they're going to say, show us your assets. We want to see what you have on deposit, and we want to make sure that what you have on deposit is enough to cover your assets that you have lent out. And if they're not performing, then that's a bigger deal. So a lot of times these banks, and you can just start calling up banks and going, hey, what do you
Leave
have?
that out. We don't want to tell people that.
Okay.
No, but what I was going to say is that what changed in the 14, 15 Dodd-Frank with the regulations that came on the banking industry when too big to fail happened was that they upped the requirement on the banks to have more cash on hand to prevent a 9, 10, and 11. But right now, at
And it
least,
still didn't prevent
It's
the bank.
no.
It's still, I have.
and there's still the bankers that we talk to, and we talk to some of the same bankers,
Yeah.
like they're scared. They're absolutely scared because they notice the slow pay history.
Right.
And on these local regional banks, it's tough. So, and then it impacts the community
Right.
around them.
Right.
So the ability to short sale is going to be there, but I think someone's losing. I'm just hoping it's not the little bank.
Yeah, so one big thing that happened with the shadow inventory with the foreclosures in 2009, 10-ish that wasn't really there was the banks at the time anyway didn't have to have the same reserve requirement unless the asset was REO. So if the bank owned the property, then they had to have a higher reserve requirement. If it was just in like minor default, they didn't have to have the reserve requirement that they do now. So one thing Dodd-Frank did was if the loan is in smaller default, I don't know the numbers because I'm going back in history some. Well, now they have to have a higher reserve in the default position as opposed to in the REO position. So what does that do? Well, ideally, I suppose it makes the bank more liquid, so they're going to keep their money so they can actually have it to cover their shit. But in reality, all it does is pushes the liquidity crisis forward in the marketplace. So the bank is going to get hit earlier on at the default point as opposed to the foreclosure point, which goes to
But it's not only.
your point,
right.
saying you ought to buy the notes instead of work the short sale.
Because it is, and are you hitting them on the right day?
Yeah.
Those banks, because
Yeah.
when you go in the door, all of a sudden they get a dictation down from their board going,
Change mine.
you got to liquidate this.
Mail.
You got to get rid of this because we're gonna be audited and
Yeah.
we're gonna get taken over. And I mean, that's your risk that you're playing with. You're not when you don't have enough liquidity in some of these banks. And there's a lot of them that if those commercial loans fail, which that's kind of what we're seeing more and more and more of, it'll take them down. And it literally is one bad loan away for the smaller regional banks.
And I don't think they realize how easy it was to get away with some underwriting, right? That some fraud that happened, right?
Yeah.
So I told you outside, right? I just was at Bill Allen's multifamily event, right? And one of their stories was an underwriting a deal. I forget the state. I'm not even going to try to guess it, but they got under contract. They thought it was a home run. Let's just say they got under contract for 4.8, right? When they got all the financials sent over, some things weren't lined up, right? There were actually redactions from the operating account.
Good God.
So they called back to him and said, right off the bat, they just hit him with $1 million reduction, and they accepted. And that was a huge red flag. So they're like, all right, well, we have to come out and see it. So when they flew out to see the property, every other unit that they showed him had just a chair in it and a bed or something, right? Somebody just had moved in, but in all reality, everything was just vacant. Everything was a lie on paper. And the previous owners, they bought the property. They did a cash out refinance. They took that cash, went and spent it, never put a dollar into the property. And now the property's underwater hugely, right? Now they're trying to sell it for profit, thinking that they could just write appreciation. In all reality, they're just trying to give it away now. So, and they can't. So that's just going to go back into the bank's problem.
Well, I've got 2 friends who, and they don't know each other, but they both have private equity firms. And they're no longer going to be a possible buyer of mine because they're both going under. And it's both due to bad commercial loans.
That they wrote or that they bought, right? So
that they wrote.
Oh,
So
and
what's the failure point of that? What's the issue with why is the bad? Why is the no bad? Sorry.
Was that the
On
operator
one of them,
writing?
on one of them, it was bad underwriting. It was, and their attorneys missed stuff. The other one, it's no fault of anybody's. It's
The market took a turn.
the markets have turned. They had to take this thing back because who they lent money to can't get it refinanced on it. But I mean, it's one of those things. I don't think that in every instance that it's necessarily fraud or a bad actor. But
natural. There's natural causes, right? I mean, just
and unforeseen stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, but I do think that the sickness in the commercial industry is going to affect the ability to get loans in the residential mortgage industry as well. I don't think we're done seeing that kind of pain.
all I know is that the calls we're fielding on the inbound residential side, the default ratio.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, it's way high.
it's
Well, no one could go into default during COVID.
right.
So
And they weren't penalized. And I was going to
Right.
talk about that because switching back to the residential side, in 9, 10, 11, they let mom and pop people, homeowners, they let them get hurt by the credit.
Well,
Right.
for sure.
When Rona happened, they instituted that like stop the
Right.
like
Stop
you couldn't-
foreclosures. You could not foreclose.
You could not foreclose, but they also, the creditors couldn't report you late.
Yeah.
So your credit cards, your car payments, your anything that was reporting to your credit, you couldn't report these people late. So these people still have a good score,
Right.
whatever that means to them, so they can go and
I know this one investor, and he had 12 or 13 houses, and he went into forbearance on every single one of them. And when he told me that, I said, you did what? Like, he had them rented out.
Mhm.
I'm like, you had the ability to make these
You
payments.
just did it for fun.
yeah.
You just
Because I just bought it for
did
the
it. He
money.
goes, well, they said, you don't
The
have to make.
government was helping
Government
me.
was like on TV saying don't make your mortgage payment,
I-
and I'll go into forbearance. So he didn't get every single one of them because that's what I remember from 08, 09. Remember that?
Yeah.
With short sales, they're like, oh yeah, stop making your payments. We'll give you a short sale. And then
Yeah.
all of those people that never got it approved, they end up losing their house
Yeah.
because that short sale didn't go through and the bank just foreclosed on them.
Yeah.
But that, so
And in
now-
08, they had, rolling 90-day lates. They had, I don't even see those anymore, really.
rolling
They-
180s.
They had foreclosures hitting your credit left and right. Your credit goes from, you think someone with an 800 credit score is like sophisticated, that's fine until they have 4 foreclosures and they go to 480 real quick.
Yeah.
Well, that guy in that situation made a calculated decision based on his.
What happened,
Brain
what
and
happened to the
investment.
houses?
But what about because in my
Serious
situation, I talked to a lady and she said, I don't know, I haven't made a payment in 3 years. And I'm sitting there in her living room like,
What?
what? She's
What?
like, yeah, I don't know. Someone else has been making my payments.
Oh,
No.
yeah, sure they are.
So
Seriously?
yeah, this is what she says to me. So then I bust out her paperwork. I start looking at her paperwork and I'm like, oh, like, it was just like, no, they did. They put her in forbearance and then they modded her. So she hasn't made a payment. And then they just put it on a loan mod. And now she's like, oh, yeah, my payment's cheaper now.
I get that. But
Right? So
maybe. So with this particular investor, when you don't make an interest payment, and depending on where that loan is at in its lifespan, right? So if you look at a fully amortized 30-year loan, the first 5 years is all interest. So if you're starting there, you've got these humongous interest payments that have now, for 2 or 3 years, been tacked on to the unpaid principal balance.
Have you seen
So
the
now that
43-year
house is-
extension?
I have.
Like it's
I've seen I'm not anti 40-year loans,
me neither.
but that's how you get that payment lower.
Mhm.
So the unpaid principal balance is now this humongous thing that is over the value of the house, and you're paying on 40. I think
43. I think
43 is a
it's
lot.
43 is FHA will allow you
To do
allow
43?
them to mod it to a 43. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure
Something
what the
like
height.
that.
I mean,
But still,
I've done a 40-year loan just to get the payments lower to where they needed to be, and I don't think that's bad.
Commercial or
Residential.
and no one says that we can only do a 30-year loan. We could write 50 years. As people that do notes, we could write a 50. We could.
50-year would be,
Well, if we go to Japan, it's like 100 years. So
or England too. Yeah, but I don't know that makes it right.
Yeah, but England's only fixed for like even 5 or 6 years on the residential side usually.
Yeah.
They're usually not fully,
Yeah.
it's not usually fully fixed for the term. It's kind of weird.
Well, no, and it's technically I think it's like a 99-year lease. Yeah, you're buying it, but it's not a mortgage like what we do.
So what are you doing for marketing for these notes?
I'm doing it right now.
Fair enough.
I've got real estate divas. I'm actually going to start a new thing where just especially recently I've seen just so many mistakes that people make originating owner finance mortgage notes in the title side
don't look
too.
at me when you say that.
No, I'm not talking to you. But no, like when you're looking at like what the title companies are doing, we've got some pretty famous title companies and title attorneys here in Dallas who do a crap job setting this stuff up. And they really do a disservice to investors. And investors don't know any better, right? They're like, oh, well, I've got this attorney doing the paperwork. They don't read the documents. I mean,
They think just because a title company stamped it, right? And that is my big thing about the RMLO. I hate RMLOs. Offense. Actually, yeah, offense. I hate RMLOs because they have all this power now. But just because, and you could be a bad RMLO and still write a bad loan and still approve a bad loan. Now there's some risk to it.
they don't actually approve anything. You, as the lender, approve them based on the report they give you. If you want to,
Not
it
if
was
you
a
ask.
Texas Pride file that had a 70% DTI on it.
Not
I
if
mean-
you ask the gurus out there on Facebook. It's
The
all up
gurus
to
who
the
don't do
RML.
any deals,
Yeah.
they don't do any deals. They don't see any of this paper. And no, you don't. The RMLO is to protect you so that you know what's going on. And I like Texas Pride because I get 150 page report on this borrower, and it's got a nice little summary there. I can flip through it, look at their credit score, and go, great. They verify ITIN numbers and social security numbers. So I know those aren't fake and they are who they say they are. Those are really the important parts that you get from the RMLO.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to go and hey, yeah, this person can't afford this, and you still want to, for whatever maybe covert knowledge that you have about them that maybe is not public, yeah, fine.
I'm really interested to see where we started talking about title companies, but where fraud in general goes, right? Moving forward, it's getting rampant, right? We're seeing insane deals
Did I tell you all about the note servicing company
Oh,
that
sure.
you did. I didn't tell Tony yet because Tony wasn't there, but we don't have to name names.
No, I'm
but-
not going to name names, and I'm not going to put anybody on blast. I still don't. There's nobody who will take all the information that I compiled. So I'm buying this note. Okay, I'm buying this note, and we go to closing, and it is totally normal for a servicing company to go, hey, there's an escrow shortage here, and absolutely, because usually then they'll collect extra in escrow to bring it current, but the shortage is there. And I said, yeah, we've got to fund that. And so, Brandy over at Mutual Title goes, well, it's like over $5,000. And I go, what? A $5,000 shortage. I'm like, they're only bringing in like $6,000 a year. I'm like, that doesn't sound right. Send me all of that. So I like one Thursday night, I'm sitting there and I start going through it, and it was completely fraudulent. We're talking. They said there was this note servicing company said there was a $5,000 shortage in the escrow. There was a $13,000 surplus when I went through everything, because the borrower had been paying the taxes and insurance. And then I had the receipts. I mean, it's a matter of public record. You just print it off of, in this case, DCAD, and so I'm printing off like, the tax receipts, and it shows who makes those payments. And they had it in this escrow analysis that the note servicer had. So I know that they've basically embezzled about $18,000
from that one.
From
that one thing. And then there's two others that I've been looking at, and those are one's already 16,000 that I can prove, and the other one's like 10.
What size notes? So 5,000. I'm just for relevance. Is 150,000.
150, 200,000, somewhere around there. Yeah,
So-
no, but it's. What do you do with that? I mean, it's obvious that, you estimate 500 to 1,000 notes being serviced, called 1,000 and say it's $15,000 per note has been embezzled over the course of, 5-10 years.
So basically, what happened in that circumstance?
You're talking
for the
$15
people that are
million.
watching, that's a
$15
lot of money.
million in theft.
So what happened there is the owner who has the note, right, the homeowner, is paying their property tax to the city and the county when they get their tax bill in January. And then during the year, the servicing company is still taking out or still collecting what should be escrowed for paying that property tax.
And then
So-
embezzling it.
More or less, the homeowner is paying property tax twice. Once to the servicing company,
Correct.
who is not actually paying it to the property, like to the taxing institution, and B, paying the property tax directly to the cities and counties.
Yeah.
That's pretty cut and dry. It's pretty messed up.
It's
That's pretty-
really messed
that's
up.
pretty
And the
fraudulent.
people, and the ones that they're doing this to are,
Don't
No.
say it. I don't know if the downfall of commercial is anyone's direct fault, or again, like we were talking about earlier, the investor who's pitching it or the syndicator. Like, I don't think they initially got into them for the wrong reasons.
With that being said, we keep on saying the downfall of commercial. If a commercial deal came up and it was the right operators, would you jump into it today?
yes.
Right? Like
Absolutely.
so with that being said,
But it's knowledge, the knowledge that we have today is not what you had 2 years ago.
Mhm.
2 years ago, Pete, you could sell anything to anybody and people were bidding up. And then June, a year and a half ago, like June of, what is that? That's 2022,
Mhm.
right? It's seemingly overnight. It felt overnight that everything just came to a halt. And that was residential. My short-term rentals, like I noticed an immediate, I can go back and look at all of my spreadsheets of what, my monthly income was. And right there in June 2022, everything kind of dropped off about 30% in revenue
When did
across
they
the
start
board.
raising rates? Was it April?
I
I think it was April of 22.
Yeah.
They started in April, and like again, they started talking about it. And they had no choice.
Wasn't
but
it
to do
before that?
It was either March or April, I think, in 22. We didn't look it up, I suppose. But that's my biggest problem, though, and I mentioned it to Kelly when we had her on the podcast, is you should have seen it coming. Like, not you
There were
necessarily
plenty
specifically, but
indicators
like
leading
the
to it.
commercial operators, there's ones that bought in like February, March of that year on adjustable rates with no rate caps. And it's like the Fed's been saying for the last 9 months they're going to start raising rates literally,
Right.
Next year in the spring.
But they didn't understand what that meant. And I don't think anybody thought that they would go up as high as what they've done. I mean, I've got like 2.5% on my house, on my own personal residence. Is there ever if you're sitting there and that's, people have short attention spans and they have short memories.
Mhm.
So most of these real estate investors know is about 5 to 10 years. And they know, I can get 3% interest on basically anything I want to buy. It just
Do
escapes
they just not
them.
think about,
No.
they don't think about rates can go up?
No,
You know, when I started, 7% was free money.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And it
For
was
the
great.
record, we have free money right now at 6%.
Oh God, yes.
It's free. Like the people that argue that 6 3/4 mortgage is expensive, you're out of your fucking mind.
Yeah.
Like it's free. It's free money.
On my floor was on like my first deal, which was a commercial multifamily. The floor was at 975, and it went up over in the mid 2000s. It went all the way up to 12.
I mean, the
It wasn't
market.
uncommon. It
The
wasn't
market
common.
across the country kind of hums along around 8.5 mortgage rates.
Yeah.
That seems to be where historically we've done well as a country.
Right.
So I think we'll be back there. How long, how fast, I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is, it's what is going to really hurt the economy and the residential real estate market is the absence of credit. So when you start having all of these commercial loans failing,
Yes.
then there's less money for these banks to lend out. They have to have more liquidity on. So down payments will have to be bigger if people want to go borrow money. Credit scores will be a lot stronger. So gone are, somebody with a 600 credit score going in and, they'll pop back up, because we saw that in 08 and 09 and 2010, where you needed a 720
Mm-hmm.
if you were going to go borrow money. And I think that's where we're headed.
Hey, but you could do 3.5% on a residential loan at a 580 credit score.
You can.
Yeah. So
That right there is a recipe of disaster.
Are you
and
talking
it
sub
is,
two or are you talking subprime? I can't
It's-
figure
I'm
out.
talking about FHA requirements.
No, I know.
3.5% with a 580 credit score for your owner occupied house. That's why
and that's 2007 all over
all
again.
over again, and they refuse to, like, that's why I hate the Dodd-Frank rules for our world, because I know we write better paper than the damn government does.
Yeah. No, I mean, well, here's the thing. The government is not writing that paper. Mortgage brokers are writing that paper.
Yeah.
And if they know that they're going to write something on Friday and on Monday, they're going to sell that loan to the government because it meets all your FHA guidelines, they're going to do it again and again and again. Should somebody with a 580 credit score be getting a home loan?
Yeah.
No, they shouldn't. And especially right now,
At 3.5% down.
right, which means they're basically underwater.
And they get to walk away if they right? So
And they will walk away
absolutely,
because
we've seen that.
it takes 10%, right? It takes 10% to sell a house. I don't care who
Yep.
you are, what you're doing, right? Because you've got your
No, my
agent
friend
fees, you've
Sarah
got
will do it
repairs.
for $1,000
Yeah.
for me. But you don't have to
Get
pay
it, but
commission.
the average, right?
Yeah.
The average,
do,
the
Sarah.
average person, right, selling a house, it's going to cost them around 10%. If they're sitting there at basically 97, 98% of that loan, let's say we have just prices go down a little bit. What if prices go down 5 or 10%? Okay, well, now they're underwater. They're just going to start leaving the keys in the mailbox.
Yeah.
And who would blame them? I mean,
we
they can't
saw
get
it
anything.
happen.
Yes.
And so I don't think we're going to see it this time. I don't.
Just takes
I know.
that much. And that's the whole thing. Are we going to teeter? Because defaults are rising.
Oh yeah.
Once you have a certain amount of defaults, then it's like a domino effect.
But there's defaults, but then there's people fixing the defaults right now.
Yeah.
Whether it's through short sales, sub twos, the market. And this is one thing you brought up earlier, going back to the 6 to 11 or 6 to 12. We didn't, you touched on it as far as saying like, oh, well, Texas isn't going to go down because Texas didn't have that giant runway, the
Right.
appreciation that the coasts did. Well, we just came out of the longest appreciation cycle, and we're still appreciating technically. We came out of the longest appreciation cycle in the last, 2 years here? That was probably, 15-year run?
Yeah.
Right? So we had the 15-year run of appreciation, almost pretty much double digits for the state. So can we see what New York and California saw, which is, a overnight 40% or 50% drop.
Well, they are a precursor
Mm-hmm.
to Texas. So watch what the coasts do first to see what's coming our way.
Yeah, a piece on that. Cullen is the only left coaster here that I know of. Always watch affordability, like at least with the coast, because affordability in the housing market is always predictive of at least a slowdown and generally a crash. So affordability kind of predated the crash in the 80s and like 86 or whatever. It predated the tech bubble crash, the tech bubble blip, and definitely predated the 2008 crash. So what then dictates affordability? Well, prices and interest rates. So there has to be basically a equalization of affordability and demand. Otherwise, if you have less affordability and less demand, well, prices have to go down, right? If you have more affordability, then it's going to create some demand, but also the demand is going to soak up the inventory. So if we maintain a higher interest rate environment throughout the year, basically what we're seeing right now, right, is people, homeowners with a 3% loan, and I don't know what mine is, I think it's actually higher than that because I never bothered to refi, but it's so low, we're not going to go anywhere. We're not going to sell what we have. And if we buy something else, then we're still not going to sell what we have. So that's going to be artificially low inventory on the retail side, and it still is. But where we're going to bump into problems is if prices start to settle some, or if defaults don't get taken care of and start to flood into the marketplace. And what does that? Affordability.
And we are also seeing, we can, at least from what we're told as far as statistics go, 7 million homes short in the country, right? Something like that, right? So we still have a shortage of homes with a shortage of homes. So on top of the lack of inventory, we already have this demand.
Well, and people need a place to
So what's
live.
that kind of
But
deal?
what did we see back in 08?
It doesn't-
People started combining households.
Oh, we're seeing that now. I'm seeing people put she sheds and grandma's going out back.
Yeah.
Kids, a lot of the
I'm building a playhouse. I'm not building a place to stick grandma.
For the record, that playhouse is nicer than some of the houses we buy.
Dot in that damn thing. Trust me. What do you think I gave you an AC?
That's a good idea. Can she make some cheesecake?
No, I shall cook breakfast.
But we see it in different communities, maybe not so much. Anyway, we see it on our loans that we do, where they do generational living.
Sure.
In-law suites,
No, it's not uncommon to see 2 or 3 names on
deeds.
deeds, and
Same reason why you don't market probate to Hispanic, right? Because they keep it in the house. They don't sell it, right? They'll just generation it down, right?
right.
So what's going to happen then? I think the residential side is more insulated than the commercial side.
Oh,
personally.
definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
Because of lack of demand, because of pent up supply, because of lack of supply. Sorry. And supply is going to continue to be constrained by people that don't want to move, or if they do move, they keep their old house, or are forced into moving. And then increased demand. We're going to have competing forces. We're going to have people that combine households and stuff, sure. And we're going to have people that don't move. But I don't think there's something fundamentally wrong in the lending industry in residential right now that's going to precipitate a massive crash. Because before, it was massive spikes in defaults when people basically had what should be a commercial style loan, short-term, low interest rate as a teaser rate, that then went up and got reset. And that's a big piece of what triggered a lot of the defaults in 2008-9.
Right.
Now we're seeing that same set of circumstances play out in the commercial market as rates have gone up. And these operators that have, if they're on a 1-year adjustable or a 1-year fixed and then it adjusts, they probably should have been listening to the Fed.
Well, and
That's my problem with
Well,
that.
the question
most
is
commercials are 3 to 5.
3 to
right?
5 years.
And
Yeah,
they were written in on the long term.
A lot of the bridge loans,
bridge
loans for the construction, for the
18.
rehabs, 12 to 18 months. And then either resets, generally with a cap, or has to get,
Balloons.
refied or
Yeah.
balloons.
So, I mean, the Fed can keep buying mortgages, and that will lower interest rates if the Fed buys more. But we haven't seen inflation down to the target number yet. So
It's being kind of sticky.
I don't foresee them doing that. They're not going to all of a sudden go, hey, let's go buy a bunch of mortgages and,
Unless those mortgages are in Ukraine, there's not a chance in hell, right?
I don't know about you, but we don't have inflation in this country.
No, inflation
what
is
you
down,
think,
which means
inflation
that
is
it
down.
just has
It's
decreased a little.
down.
But it's down. It's down. It's just
But we're not.
Still
we're-
fucking up.
But
But
we're
it's
not-
down.
It's down,
from
but
its
it's
high.
not down where it's
No.
not at 2%.
And
It's
it's
just down
not-
from its high. That's all.
And this
and
is
it-
why, and this is
and it's
why,
artificial because it's not calculating the actual cost of living, some of the cost of living things, right? And so, or even gas is not in it and all that bullshit.
Can't
So
go to the grocery store
you
for
know.
under $100 anymore.
I went and priced a gallon of milk is like $6.
Yeah.
I,
we're
car-
10.
Yeah, yeah.
But they're
that's
organic, right?
low.
yeah, $6.99 is what I saw at Whole Foods.
I like my Fairlife milk. It's like
It's like drinking yogurt.
But I think that these are the things that we talk about because we're in the industry.
right.
But what are
The average person.
the average person?
Well, and
I mean, they know that they have no money in their bank account. They were teased into stopping to make their payments
on their mortgage.
on their mortgage.
And so now their house, in a lot of cases, I've seen houses, they're underwater.
Yeah.
I mean, and then it's the ones that the people who wrapped their mortgages and then didn't make those underlying payments like they were supposed to.
That never happens.
And I'm like, and now they're desperate to sell because they're like, it will eventually, it's an inverted.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Because I mean, it's fine for the next year or two. But I keep telling people, when I'm buying these mortgage notes, and I'm like, rates are going up.
Mhm.
And you just need to be prepared. We're probably going to, I expected to see double digit actual
Oh, I think
10%.
yeah. I don't know that they're going to hit doubles because I think that
I think they're really trying, it's an election year and they're trying to keep them down.
but I think they're going to stop in that 8.5 to 9.5.
Yeah.
Even though that's almost double, they're going to be like, oh, it's Walmart pricing. They're going to be fine with that. But it really needs to be double.
Right.
Mhm.
No, I think there's a shot we could hit them. Historically, Texas hit 18%.
Yeah.
What was that, 80s?
Yeah.
So
79.
it's not out of the realm of possibility that we could see much higher interest rates. So for everybody looking at it going, oh, well, I've got this 8% interest rate owner finance mortgage note. And I'm like, what do you want me to do with that? I had somebody send me a 6%. And I'm like, okay, well, that's about, 50%. I can buy it 50 cents on the dollar. If I go and I, plug and chug into a calculator to go, okay, my yield really needs to be, 14, 15%. So I can buy that for 50 cents on the dollar. And I go, and I tell everybody, I go, that's today's price.
Yep.
In 6 months, I used to always say, oh yeah, no, I'll honor that price going forward. I go, I don't know what this market is going to look like in 6 months. I said, but I think, we're going to see higher rates, which means, whatever that, if you've got something less than 9 or 10%, you're going to take a
If you're
huge
writing
gap.
loans at less than 10%, you're a fucking moron.
I had somebody who just sent me one that wrote at 6. And they're like, oh, but yeah, but the underlying is, at 4.
Yeah, or 3
And I
and
was
3
like,
and
great.
3.75, right? Well, that's
Yeah.
great. Why are you stupid?
But it is, with the way, going back to what TJ said, where, these prices are so much higher, and rents haven't come up yet
no.
to match. So,
In fact, they're
Rents
coming
are going down.
yeah. And why
You
is
had
that?
so many
Why is
asshole
that?
gurus saying
Why-
rents
why-
never come down, right?
Why are rents
never come
co-
down.
why are rents
will
coming
come
down?
Because affordability and everything is adjusting. You can go live in a nice rental that has taken an adjustment, right?
Well,
People are doing
people
3
hop from-
months rent concessions.
people hop from that's the big article in Dallas is like, why are they still building new apartments? Well, first, they've been planned for the last 10 years. So, now they get around to building them. Well, those apartments are getting filled and everyone's like, where are these people coming from? They're coming from either shittier apartments or houses. And then they're taking what Nick just said, the 3 months free concessions, right? And moving it to the new spot and hoping that they survive the 18-month span of that new spot. So those houses are kind of being vacated for the cheaper because they're willing to pay a little bit more if they don't have to maintain. We saw a spike when COVID hit, we saw a spike in everyone rushed to houses from apartments.
Right.
Because you
Because
couldn't leave
yeah.
your house. You were not allowed to go to the goddamn park.
Right.
right? So I want a house with a yard. At least I can go outside, right?
Yeah.
And in apartments, I mean, you can't do that.
Right.
So now then we saw this ease back into apartment living, city living. But the cost is getting so exorbitant that those outlying areas we're personally seeing in Sherman Denison come down. And I don't know why, because there's still growth up there. There's still jobs.
It's also trying to get the right tenant is just taking longer too, right? So
I think
you kind of, if you're getting a pool of shitty tenants, you kind of lower it a little.
Well, I
just
think
to try to
there's
find
a lot of
one, right?
home
So-
buyers who are going, is this even the right time to buy? Especially if rents are lower than what it costs to buy a house and own a house. You know, I get it that some people are in love with like, oh, I've just got to be a homeowner. But the reality is, do most Americans feel that way?
No.
And so if it costs more to buy a house than it does to go rent the same thing down the street or, you know, condo or apartment, they are going to go rent and until that kind of
Equalize.
well, the
equalizes.
developers that have been doing these, I don't even know what to call them, like the A-class apartments.
Yeah,
the
they're
amenities
they're so
are absurd. What they offer, I will never get. When I lived in Legacy West, I want to go back because I now live in a house and I hate it because not that I do
You don't
any
have
work on the house.
concierge, and
But yeah, I don't have
coffee
concierge,
machine,
and I don't get to pull up and they park my car for
Yeah.
me, right? Like the amenities blew me away. I paid for it, but it was
You were
incredible.
living next door to Emmett Smith, all right?
Yeah.
You're not doing that now in a house.
No,
You moved
no.
to Carrollton.
I'm living next
Well,
to
and-
Mrs.
and-
Smith. Yeah.
and I think I think a lot of people too, you know, that's a shift, especially with younger
Mm-hmm.
people, millennials. They're going, yeah, I don't want to go mow a lawn.
Yeah.
I want to be downtown. I want to be able to walk to restaurants, walk to bars. You know, exactly what you said. Have somebody park my car. Have a laundry service to be able to, you know.
It's great.
So we're kind of-
if you've never had laundry service, God, it's so
By the
good.
way, I live in a house and I have laundry service.
It's so good.
Real quick.
I do, and they dropped off my dry cleaning last night. I was so happy.
I just put it in an orange bag on
Yeah.
the porch.
Yeah,
And then the laundry elves, they come and
Yeah.
they get it and then they bring it back the next day.
Yeah.
That's
it's
wonderful.
amazing. Folded, bagged up, neat, how I want.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
It looks like they worked at the game.
Squirrel.
Yes. Yes.
There you go. Gotta get my cats back. So one thing that we're always talking about in the mastermind, right, in REIF is stress testing, right? Stress testing your deal, making sure that it's going to work, right? So what I mean by that is if you have a $30,000 rehab, does that work at a $60,000 rehab, right? Or does that deal put you underwater, right? So stress test your deal. With everything moving forward, you said earlier, I think you're looking for an 18% return. So like, how are you stress testing your deals? It's kind of
15,
like
14 to 15%.
So-
Yeah, and that's why I also pay more for these things because I will take a smaller yield. And I also, when you pool these into bigger numbers, these institutional buyers will take a smaller yield as well. But it's not down. I mean, everybody's bank lines are the same right now, and I don't know. I mean, I'm like over 9, so I'm, anything that I have on my books that is less than a 9%
You're
interest
losing.
rate, I'm losing money.
Even with the spread of a discount, you're losing, right?
Yeah, so I have to know that, and I have to prepare. Now, I mean, am I going to sell? No, I'm not going to sell out a bunch of these. I'll sell some, but I need to prepare. Going, all right, what's the future look like? And you're right. If interest rates go up another point or two, and my line resets again in say 3 years, what does that look like? Because then I will have to sell a bunch of things just to make sure. And it's not going to be at 100% anymore. So a lot of that, you've got to look at what you have. How is it performing? What is it performing, at? And go, all right, if these numbers change, I hope everybody now in real estate over the last year and a half has kind of had their eyes open to what interest rates can really do to us.
the speed that
And
can
the
happen,
speed
right?
at which it
Because
happened was
it can go from 8.5 to 12.5 just as quick as it went from 4 to 8, right? So
And just because it goes up does not mean it's coming down at the same speed. I mean, I think we have 3 to 5 years.
How can we, does anybody, I'm not, honestly, I was probably drinking, so I have no idea how fast rates it took to get rates down to 3.
they
What was
dropped
that-
quickly
what
just
was that
because
run,
of COVID and
right?
such, but
It,
So rates dropped during COVID. They dropped once at a point and once at I think a half point pretty quick because rates hadn't gone up that much under Trump.
Right.
In 2008, they dropped rates quickly-ish, but that was a 2008 situation to try to stimulate things.
but you still couldn't
But
get a mortgage.
there's still no
With
liquidity
liquidity.
in the market.
Yeah,
Right,
there was no liquidity.
The
so,
line, the access to the credit was
Right.
nil
Right.
in those days. Even if you were great credit scores and had, like,
oh, you
nobody
needed
was
a,
giving money.
No, nobody. And I mean, you said real estate, and they were slamming doors in your
Absolutely.
face.
Well, and what we see with the rates a lot of the time too is if there's a fast rate drop, it's because of external factors. So it's going to be because of a COVID situation, a 2008 situation. I think they dropped rates during 9/11. I don't remember. I was in college then. But so what's going to precipitate that now? And is it going to have a bigger negative impact on the marketplace? Whatever this boogeyman is that we're not even seeing. Versus what everyone's saying now is, well, they're going to start lowering rates. They said April. That's not going to happen. Now they're saying August. I said that's probably not going to happen. I think October, November, they might do a little teaser taste and lower rates at the Fed level a little bit, but it's not going to be a massive fall off in rates unless there's something externally that is a bad thing, but they feel like they need to lower rates for, being supportive of pricing.
Well, and the real estate, the residential real estate market, commercials and for it's just pain, and that's unavoidable. Will the residential real estate market feel a lot more pain than what it is going to be? Will those interest rates and commercial defaults create a tightening in residential real estate credit?
I was just about to say.
And that is, it's the absence of credit
Yes.
that creates a recession and a depression. When the average person can't borrow money to start a business, when they can't borrow money to, buy a home or buy a car or buy any of that, that's where we really see recession. And that's what happened in the Great Depression. There was just no money to borrow.
So
for
the
anything.
question really circles back around to is what we're witnessing.
Just the beginning.
It absolutely is, and how far will they let it go before we already know no one's getting money? I mean, unless you're about the only person offering credit right now is like Nebraska Furniture Mart. You can go buy a table and chairs for 24 months at no interest, right? But again, there's very few people that are getting credit and liquidity. I don't think that anyone's talking about it. And so how big of a lack of credit are we going to bump into
Well,
to
and
cause what we're worried about?
how much time needs to go on
Yes.
in this environment, this lending environment, that I stop hearing people bitch about it? Like if I hear somebody bitch about a freaking 7 or 8% interest rate again, I'm just like, really? I'm like, it's going to get worse. And once it does get worse, then are you going to be like, well, you offered me 7%,
6 months ago.
6 months
9
ago. Will you honor that? No.
Well, I think it's important though, because we've talked about like so many different levels and tiers. And I said this to Sarah this morning. We were talking about some of our retail houses. I said, the annoying thing is we have a couple really good houses on the market. And let's just say they've been there for 30 or 45 days. I was like, it's those buyers and retail buyers are being tricked into thinking the Fed's going to drop the rate's going to come down in
So we're going to
next
sit on the
month,
sidelines.
right? So they
Sit on the
sit
sidelines.
back well, I'm not talking about the people that are saying, I'm just going to wait 3 years. These are just normal Joes waiting 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks before they try to rate lock, right? Or lock their rate and shop. And it's causing a longer days on market. Sarah and I at the same time said, it's a normal market. It's a normal market. It's not a bad market. Like we're still in a very quick market in Texas.
You know,
Sub 90
I get that
Yeah,
you
we're
don't.
sub 90.
Sub 90 is great.
It's
And-
phenomenal.
but we went for so many years.
Yes.
Where it
You're
was
the
like,
same asshole that's crying about 7.5%,
Yeah,
right?
it's like, well,
That's the same
Yes.
thing. Stop crying about sub 90 days. Shut the fuck up,
well,
right?
it's like, oh, we had 20 offers. It was on the market for 12 hours. We had 20 offers, and we picked the best one, and it's
And it was all cash.
it's
over
all
ask.
cash, and
Sounds like
we're
you were
closing in a
underpriced.
day.
Yeah.
So again, I'm like, yeah, that's abnormal. But there were so many people who jumped in to
Oh,
real
yeah.
estate investing around that time and got their real estate license.
Huh.
And now
Was it
they're like, well, gosh, we're not making any
65%?
money.
Or some egregious number. I'm going to get the percentage wrong. Someone fact check me, but it was like 60 or 70% of the realtors in the state of Texas got their real estate license after 2020.
Wouldn't surprise me.
And now they're going to be like, I can't make any money doing this.
They're all barbers now.
Yeah.
So
So what they're doing? They're doing
yeah,
hair?
a lot of them do hair now.
Well, and they also drive Uber.
Yeah.
They also drive for
I love
my
that.
laundry service
Yeah.
that drops off my laundry every night.
The Uber drivers are great when you're just like, yeah, they're like, oh, I have my real estate license. I'm like, yeah, everybody does. Welcome.
Well, again, cheery conversation.
Wrap it up.
Here's the thing. You make more money. I make more money. Okay, let's not say everybody does, but I make more money in a down market than I do in an up market. And really, it's looking at everything going on, planning for the worst case scenario, going, all right, logically, what's going to happen here? Yeah, we know interest rates are going to go up. If they don't, cool, great. And I'm going to plan that, interest rates are going up and I'm going to make more money. Because there will be some people panicking and panic selling.
The scary thing to me is that the average Joe, as I'll call him, doesn't even realize, right? Like they look at their MSNBC and they see the market at an all-time high and they think everything's amazing, right? Like their portfolio is doing okay.
I don't know.
and decent, but
How is your crypto account for the last couple days? I'm like,
I don't know.
I actually had to go find my 12 words and I was like, oh shit, running.
I watched mine go up $250 a minute the other night, and it was sexy. I'm like, kept pushing it. I'm like, are you shitting me? I'm like, look at this.
Refresh.
I'm like, yeah. It's seriously, it's like when you see crypto doing stuff like that, that is not a healthy stock market. That means there's a lot of sickness there because people are putting their money into alternative assets like heavy metals and
instead of chasing investment.
yeah. And when you look at our valuations right now in our stock market, what are they, 50 times earnings? That is not sustainable. Just like high housing prices are not sustainable. Stuff has got to come down at some point.
Pray for peace, prepare for war.
Mm-hmm.
So hope for the best, and but
Lao Tzu or Machiavelli?
I don't know. You tell me.
I don't know.
You know way more.
I remember I was scarred
I just
heavily
saw it,
after
and I was like,
08,
it's
and I'm
actual.
like, I won't be back. I will never do that again. And I had no breaks with buying up until like mid-July 2008. Like I was still buying.
And the lesson from that, right, isn't to put brakes on now. It's just to
Adjust.
You have to make sure your buy box is tightening, to make sure that you're stress testing your deals and making sure that everything is going to perform worst case scenario for the next 12, 18, 24 months, right? Because you don't know what's coming.
And we already know that multifamily is hurting
Mhm.
because I'm sure you guys see as many wholesaling deals that come across your desk, right? We'll put deals, in quotes there. 2 years ago, people were contacting me going, do you know anybody who's got a multifamily complex for sale? Do you know anybody? And then a year ago, all of a sudden, you start seeing a ton of them offered. And I'm like, these are like 40 and 50 units. It's a great starter for somebody in multifamily. It's not like the 8 that I started with. That's hard because you can't have anybody on site. But a 40 or 50 unit, you can have a management. You can have a manager living there on site.
Mhm.
So again, those are available. And so when you see those available everywhere, I mean, people would just bid up those multifamily syndication deals. 2 years ago, I agree.
And they
They're
didn't,
slimmest
it didn't
margins.
make sense. Yeah, they were getting bid
They
up, and people
barely
were
made
jumping on them.
sense at the low interest rates that they were at. I'm not surprised that they're defaulting, and a lot of these are going belly up.
It's going to be an interest.
Cool. Well, how can people that are listening to the podcast find you?
Ooh.
And what benefit do they get from talking to you?
What benefit? There's none.
No. She's got a yacht,
Yeah, get a yacht if you want to be friends.
and she
come on.
cosplays.
I do. I love cosplay.
I know. We didn't even talk about
next
that.
Next podcast.
We'll talk about cosplay.
Yeah. We should have fucking dressed in cosplay for this and just talked about real
will
estate.
dress up. I will dress up for any event.
I'll skip that.
True.
Yeah,
Bro,
I love
I've
dressing
seen-
Still
up.
have fun. You
I
can
know.
be a fucking bar.
Any event, I mean, and especially like my husband talks
Sorry,
about
Tom.
it when we went to Oktoberfest. He is now disappointed. He's like, I just don't have a lot of occasions to wear my drinking shorts.
My drinking shorts.
So, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram,
Careful.
Kristin Gerst.
That went down yesterday. I don't know.
Did it?
The world
It was
shut down.
hysterical.
Is
the memes for
Instagram or
that.
Facebook?
Meta went down.
Meta went down, really?
It was a
I didn't
precursor
even-
for the
I was-
election
I was
for
busy.
November.
Yeah.
Different podcast.
Yeah, different podcast. I don't know.
Sorry,
Shadow
Shadow.
ban.
How do people
Yeah,
find you?
so Capricorn Mortgage Investments is a good way. Google it.
Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah, Instagram, Facebook.
Awesome.
And what's the podcast like? Or
Real Estate Divas,
There you go. Yeah.
which, we should have all you guys on that.
Now that and maybe
You
the
should just have
divas, the
told-
plural,
Oh.
should come next time.
That would
What?
The divas, both.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Jay would love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's entertaining and smart. She knows her stuff.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we're not that smart around here.
I guess so. All right, guys. Thanks for joining the Institute of Higher Earning podcast, episode number 10. If you want to see more episodes like this, don't forget to smash the subscribe button, hit the like button, and turn on the notifications. I think I said smash wrong. I think it's supposed to smash the like button. I don't know. Anyway, we'll see you in the next podcast. Bye.